Okay, hello. Welcome to our talk from using OKRs to useful OKRs. We will not tell you anything out of a textbook today. It will be a willhaben case study, how we work with OKRs and how we improve them over time. We will start with a short overview about willhaben. Then we have a look at the OKR success factors we identified and the key learnings. Then we have prepared a special type of team types. Where we have a look at 3 key result improvements. And we conclude the talk by our honest learnings and current challenges. So what we are still improving concerning OKRs. We are my colleagues. They will present themselves.
Hi, I'm Natalie, Agile coach at willhaben since 2020 and into Agile since like 2013 or something.
Yeah, I'm also an Agile coach. My name is Susanne and I started at willhaben in January.
Yeah, and I work for willhaben for more than 10 years now. My name is Andreas, and my Agile journey as an Agile coach started about 6 years ago. Okay, then we just want to have a picture. What's your experience level with OKRs in this room? So maybe you can raise your hands if you're pretty new to OKRs. Okay, thank you. And then the second segment would be we gave OKRs a try. Doesn't matter if you use it or not anymore. Okay, and the third segment is you're an active OKR user and you're much into this topic. Thank you. So the short overview about willhaben. I've brought some numbers because we are data-driven. And we are a company with more than 300 employees. We have, in the product development, we are about 100 employees. And we have 30 teams using OKRs. So they consist of 10 OKR teams and 20 organizational teams and tribes. Org teams or organizational teams are mainly the functional departments. Tribes, like the Spotify model tribes. And then we have these 10 OKR teams, which are kind of a focusing teams, focus teams, where the company has the possibility to create cross-department, cross-functional teams with certain goals and certain directions to go. And they live as long they didn't reach their goals. Yeah, and we are 3 Agile coaches at willhaben, so they're all on stage today. And maybe it's worth to mention that we don't have any Scrum Masters or anything like that. So we can say we help the teams or people at willhaben to help themselves in an Agile way. We started with OKRs about 3 years ago. Yeah. Have one big Google sheet for all the OKRs with all the OKR sheets in it. It's plenty of sheets there, it doesn't matter. And then maybe it's worth to mention that we have 40 company health metrics. Health metrics are metrics, they are monitored, but there will be only actions if they violate some certain thresholds. So I will explain that later in more detail. Is there anything else you want to know about willhaben? So I'm not boring you in any way. Yeah?
Just one question. Why is it worth mentioning that there are no Scrum Masters?
You have to talk.
Why was it worth mentioning that there are no Scrum Masters?
I don't know if it's worth, but it's the environment I wanted to describe we're working in. So we have this kind of philosophy that we educate the people and they can help themselves. So.
May I say something for me? it's very special that they work without Scrum Masters, because for me it's very special that you don't have Scrum Masters, because for me, I'm also an Agile coach. The Scrum Masters are really my help in the teams, because they are working on daily basis with the teams. As an Agile coach, I cannot work on a daily basis with them. I just can do workshops with them, coachings with them, but I cannot work on a daily basis. So I'm very glad that there's someone who also understands the mindset issue and the methodology in the teams every day. So for me, this was very special to know.
Okay, maybe the last question, because we want to do a short overview.
Thank you. Just a question to the 300 employees. What's the rate of how many are developers and how many are the rest of the world?
In the product development, there are about 100 people. So developers by itself, 60, 70, I don't know. Something like that. Okay, then we'll hop into the topic in medias res. So this is how we use OKRs, or the OKR process. We have a W process that's called a W process because it's a double feedback loop and it looks like a W. Yeah. At the beginning of every quarter, there's an OKR guidance, which is provided by the management, and it gives just the directions and the kind of goals where they have to work on. Then the teams work out a proposal, and they try to align this proposal with other teams. And if this is okay, then they give it back to the management, and the management gives feedback on this proposal. And then there's the second feedback loop, that the teams adapt the OKRs according to the feedback of the management, and then they try to get a handshake, not only with the management, they also try to get a handshake with the dependent teams, or the teams they are dependent on. Yeah, and then the quarter starts off, and we start running and working on our OKRs, and then we have these weekly check-ins, or we call it Gemba walks. They are about 15 minutes long, and originally the management was coming to the team. So now at least 2 management persons come in a call with the team, and the team can report what KRs they moved the last week and what they plan to do for the next week. And if there are any problems they cannot solve by themselves, they have the possibility to escalate it to the management, and the management will take care of it in any way, so they discuss it and then find a possible solution how you can address this problem. Yeah, and as I promised, I will also go more into detail on health metrics, but let's start with the OKRs, the objectives. The objective is for us the destination where we want to get. It's mostly written in a fragment of a sentence or in a sentence. Like here's the example that home seekers choose us over competitors on sell options. Then we have the key results, which are certain metrics. So these metrics tell us, are we progressing as we needed to get to this destination? And it's always written in increase or decrease something from a starting value to a target value. Then we have these initiatives. The initiatives are the things we think we should do to move the key results or the metrics. It's like more like a task list, I would say. And then we have these health metrics. I think they are more willhaben specifica. It's kind of a vital signs tracker. So if everything is okay with these metrics, these are just metrics we monitor. And if everything is okay, then you can go on working on your key results and then and your objectives. But if they are not okay, then we have to think about first how to solve them. So you can imagine that as maybe you are training for a marathon and you have your vital signs like the pulse and the blood pressure, and let's say the blood pressure is violating some certain threshold, like it's too low or too high, then you shouldn't train, or you shouldn't going on training for the marathon. You should first address the problem why your blood pressure is not in this threshold, and then after that is fixed, then you should go on training. And that's the same on the company level. A classic one is this example at the bottom, frauds per ads. If they are bigger than a certain number, then we escalate it and raise a red flag, and then we have to think about what we have to stop to address this problem first. Yeah, and so we go on with what we learned about creating useful OKRs.
Yeah, so as mentioned, we brought you 3 deep dives, but we also want to share with you what we kind of learned, what are success factors to be successful with key results and with objectives, and to implement them successfully. It's kind of what we learned and what kind of worked for us. So first one is to create a sense of ownership for the objectives and key results. So we really think this W process is a team sport. So it's not something that the management says and then the team prepares a draft. It's something that they should co-create. It's something where they can give feedback, where they don't have to accept all the feedback, where a lot of discussions should happen. So we try to make sure that the management gives objectives, that the key results come from management and some from the team, and then the initiatives are of course based on the team. But we try to avoid that the management already says, what they should do. It's more about which direction should you aim for, which number are we trying to move. And the second thing we've learned is that doing OKRs is hard, especially for the first time. So it takes you some time to get used to the methodology, to get into the mindset, to learn kind of about the rules. So we do quite a lot about OKR onboarding. And one specific tip that we want to share is that we do a session on how to rewrite OKRs. So we look at the key results, we have some examples prepared, and we ask the team, hey, so how would you rephrase it? How would you make it useful? And the third thing is we often get asked about OKR tooling. We try to keep it as simple as possible because we don't want the teams to get used to a new methodology and a new tool. And it's kind of what we have at the moment is just one huge spreadsheet where every team, of course there's a template, but where every team just adds their OKR sheets per quarter. That also means it's transparent for everyone. So it's not like you need to look for some team, where is the OKR sheet, or you need to get access. Everyone in the company has access to every team's OKR sheet from all quarters. So there's like no secret OKR sheet, or there's no, if you're in sales, you can't look at the tribe OKR sheets. So it's really, it's something that's transparent for everyone. And it's also important for us that it's not only about your team's OKR sheet, we have a special section for so-called contributions. That means, of course, the teams do not work completely independent from each other, but we try to make it really transparent. If you need someone, another team, if you need another skill, if you need an adaptation in a system somewhere, you write it down as a contribution and you make it transparent in the OKR sheet that you need something from the other team. That also means that every team knows what all of the other teams in the quarter need from them. So you don't know just only your own stuff, but you also know what do all of the other teams need from me. So this is really something that we try to do, make this OKR sheets transparent for everyone and make sure that interdependencies are also transparent within our OKR sheets. And as promised, we also brought you 3 deep dives. So we looked at common challenges that we see. As they say in the movies, they are inspired by real life. So we actually use them every day. In every OKR season, we're like, okay, we have this situation, but of course we edited them for clarity and for features that everyone knows and stuff like that. So if one of the willhaben people thinks that's me, it's not you, it's just a situation you experience very often. And what we want to do is a little role play. So I want to introduce our two characters. So we have Leon. Leon is an OKR coordinator. That means he is responsible that his team is creating a draft. He is responsible for looking at the management guidance, what should be included, and guide also his team through this OKR process. So making sure at the end there's a good OKR sheet there. And then we have Franziska. Franziska is an Agile coach at willhaben, so she helps the teams to create better OKRs, and she also spreads OKR knowledge and skills throughout the whole company. So heading into our first challenge. We experience that very often, especially when people are new to OKRs, and it's how to come from output to outcome-driven OKRs. So how do you make key results outcome-driven? And just to set you the scene, Leon, he is new to the OKR process. He has gone through a discovery phase, so he kind of knows. He knows about the product. He has received the guidance, so he knows where he needs to go. And he has the task to work with this feature, so-called pay livery. So another question, hands up, who knows pay livery? Show of hands. Who doesn't? It's a really nice, cool feature that we have. We actually love that, to transfer money safely, which means you do not transfer it to your seller directly, but you use a so-called escrow account, in German Treuhändlerkonto, which means you just have an intermediate, and it makes private user selling and buying much easier and much more convenient. But let's see how our story unfolds.
Hello, Franziska.
Hi Leon, how's it going?
I tried to define key results for the delivery project, but I got stuck. You know, the thing is, we already know from the discovery phase what we have to do. We just have to build it and release it. I'm not sure if we really need something like OKRs here. So I came up with this. Delivery MVP is released from 0 to 1. I know it could need some improvement, but I don't know how.
Okay, so let's see. So what do you think needs improvement here?
Well, I know key results should be phrased as outcomes, but I think they sound more like outputs, right?
Yeah, I think I would agree. I mean, you measure from 0 to 1, so actually there is no way how you can track your progress during the project. And also I'm wondering, I mean, this is not really telling you if the users actually like the feature, right?
I got an idea. We could split up the whole project in user stories and then just count the implemented user stories. Huh?
Yeah, I really like that you want to use user stories. But is this then really measuring the output or the outcome?
If you ask like that, I guess it's more on the output side again.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. So let's try to approach the whole thing from like another perspective. Imagine the feature is released. What would be the really first super small indicator that this project was successful, you know?
First of all, we wouldn't release it to everyone right away. So we would first make it available for a smaller group of people and then learn from it. We could, for example, activate delivery just for a certain category of products. And then wait for the first transactions and, well, see if everything works out as expected.
Perfect. So how could you put this thought into, you know, a key result?
Maybe something like 100 delivery transactions have been processed in category baby clothes from 0 to 100.
Sounds great. What's up next?
I think we should stay in close contact to our support and see if they have a lot of delivery tickets, and then see where we need to improve something. After that, we would activate it, I guess, for more categories. So we could write down the 2 KRs. Number of delivery support tickets is less than X per week, and increase the number of delivery categories from 0 to 5.
Yeah, so I really like it. For the last thing you said, I thought that maybe you could also use percentages. So let's imagine you think about for how many categories should we activate delivery in the first place. Yeah, so I don't know, 80%, because you know there are 20% where it just doesn't make sense or something like that. And then you use this percentage. So your key result would then be, I don't know, increased percentage of categories with delivery activated to like 80%.
Okay, but what if it takes a longer period of time, so maybe more than 1 quarter? So
Yeah.
how can we track it across multiple quarters?
Yeah, you're right. So that's maybe not a goal for 1 quarter, but I think it's perfectly okay to spread it across several quarters. So maybe in the first one you go from 0 to 35, and the next one from 35 to 60, and then the last one 60 to 80, something like that.
Ah, nice. And let me write that down.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think this is already much better than what you had before. So now you track the release, you track the quality of your feature, but I'm still wondering, do we already measure this outcome? So when delivery is then activated, how would you know that the customers like it?
Well, before we can figure out if they like it, we should figure out if they just use it. So,
Good point.
for example, by tracking the number of daily transactions. When we activate a new category, this should also have a result on increased number of daily transactions. So our key result could be then increased number of daily transactions from X to Y. And if everything is stable, we can start actively asking users if they like it and discover new ways to improve the product.
Yeah, I think you're really now getting the hang of it. So you have now 4 things that you can measure. The first one is the number of categories where delivery is activated. Then you start with the number of total transactions, and later you will move to daily transactions. And the whole time you monitor the related support tickets. So how do you like your key results so far?
Wow, they are now much more showing us if we are on the right track. So actually they are awesome. Thank you.
So as you can see, this was our first challenge. How do we come from output-driven to outcome-driven key results? What we try to focus on is, getting from something you plan to do to something you plan to achieve. To kind of go from this mindset of release to the mindset of usage, and then later on satisfaction that we have now in the usage part. And it's usually a challenge that a lot of OKR teams and OKR coordinators experience in the beginning when they're new to the whole methodology and to the whole process as well. So we kind of coach them through it, as Franziska did, with also asking a lot of why questions. Usually they get the hang of it rather quickly, and they just need a bit of practice together with us. But we also brought a second challenge. It's the so-called baseline crutch. So we have a few crutches that we often use to help teams get started, especially when they're in a difficult phase for defining OKRs. So to set the scene, Leon now changed his team. He is in the new fashion team. Fashion is a huge category at willhaben. We have like 2 million ads, something. And it's from like caps, backpacks, baby clothes, wedding dresses. Like the variety is very huge. Leon already knows he is in this team. He knows who his teammates are. He has received the management guidance, so he knows his goal is, his key result is to increase the leads of heavy sellers within this category. But he has still some challenges. So he's kind of struggling with how do I get feasible metrics for this key result? How do I get to a baseline? And this is what we will see now. So let's see how the story unfolds.
Hi, I'm back again.
What's up?
I changed to the fashion team and
Wow, great.
yeah, I would need some help with our first OKR draft.
Yeah, sure. Show me your draft.
First draft, nah, just a blank sheet, I guess. So management asked us to increase the number of leads of our heavy sellers to protect our market position. The problem with that is that we don't know how to define heavy sellers. So we don't know how many leads they have, and we cannot create any OKRs. So my short little question, can we skip them for this quarter and just start working?
Well, let's slow down a bit. So I understand your team was just set up. You don't know how to measure your main KPI yet, so it's really hard for you to define some really good key results. But that's perfectly okay, yeah? So OKRs are also showing you what is missing, yeah? What you need to do next. So your team cannot measure your most important metric yet, so what do you think you should start with?
I guess I should learn how to measure the metric.
Okay, and what do you need for that?
I have to define what a heavy seller is, and then I could start measuring.
Okay, what else?
I guess I need some start and target value, but which I don't know yet.
Yes, you're right. So as soon as you have learned how to measure your metric, everything will then just be easier. But you know, in the meantime, you could maybe help yourself with measuring your progress toward measuring your KPI and defining this baseline.
Okay, you mean I could write down increased knowledge of user segmentation as the first key result?
Yeah, something like that.
But I still don't have any clue what the start and target values are.
Yeah, I admit that that's not easy. Yeah, that's maybe a little bit tricky. So maybe we need to use some kind of workaround, like a crutch, until you then can measure your really nice KPI. So, you know, what you could do is you make a list of all the things that you want to learn about these heavy sellers.
Okay.
You know, things like how do we define a heavy seller, maybe in different categories. In which categories do we want to track them in the first place? You know, all these questions that you have around the heavy seller. And you, I don't know, you count your questions. And then you use this as a key result, just for now, you know. So your first goal to learn is, everything about this heavy seller.
So my key result is then increased knowledge about our heavy sellers by answering X open questions from 0 to X.
Yes.
Okay, I will think about that. Do I have any other crutches or helping strategies?
Yes, sure. Another possibility would be to make a survey. You know, you do a survey with your team about their confidence level, about their knowledge about these heavy sellers. And so you do a first survey, you take the average of their answers, you set something like a target value, and then every week you repeat this survey and you see if your confidence is increasing.
Okay, interesting. I will try this.
Cool, good luck.
Hey!
All right, so as you can... So this was the baseline crutch. It's something that new teams experience very often. They have no data yet. They are not quite sure how to measure their metric. But we still want them to create key results that show their progress towards a better understanding of their objective and of their key results. So this is something where we use the baseline crutch. We either help them to define the main questions and count them, or we help them to set up this confidence survey. So these are two ways of how to deal with this topic. And now we brought you a third challenge. It's the so-called subdomain crutch. So we're still in the same topic. Leon is still in the fashion team. He has received a challenge, and they want to. They are not quite sure whether the initiative they do, whether what they're trying to do is really increasing this key result so much. So they know that their goal is to increase the visits and leads in the fashion category. But this category is huge, so they have a hard time knowing will we see our actions within this metric in 1 quarter. So Leon has again come to Franziska, and he wants to help on how to see that his team is on the right track. So let's see how the story unfolds.
Hi, it's me again.
Hi! What's up?
Thanks. Better than last time because we learned how to measure specific metrics.
Yay!
Woo! But currently we are facing a new problem.
Yay!
So
You want to talk about it?
yeah, so our team has the task to increase visits and leads over the whole big fashion category over the year.
Oh, that sounds like a challenging task.
Yeah, it's also a challenging task for creating OKRs because we already know our first moves. But the real challenge will be that no matter move we do, we're not sure if it is noticeable in this big category. So if there is an increase of visits of leads or not.
Yeah, so with this you would only be able to see it on the long run if it changes somehow, right?
Yeah, yes, even if we do the right thing, we are not sure if we can see it in the metrics.
Okay, so for your product, what do you usually do when you want to figure out the next move?
I guess we do some testing. So see if the idea is the right one, and otherwise we would discard it.
And so in the discovery phase, you kind of face the same problem. You have to first see significant changes to validate the idea, and how do you act there?
I guess we think in MVPs, so and test the smallest and thinnest prototypes we can create, which probably will reveal if a user will use the feature significantly more or not.
And how do you come up with this MVP?
I guess we just look at only a very small part of the platform and see if there are changes.
And how can you transfer this way of thinking to the key result and this problem with this blurry metric?
Maybe we can have a look at just one specific, one subcategory of the whole fashion category. There we could see some moving metrics, I guess.
Yeah, I like it. It's just I'm wondering, how can you ensure that these changes in this category also have the same effect, on the other categories?
I don't know if the same actions in a specific category would have the same effects in the other categories. So I just think we should figure out what are the categories with the biggest leverage. So then we can start with these, and we will have the highest impact on the overall category, I guess. So maybe something I could write KR like increase number of visits in the subcategory sneakers, ladies fashion.
Yeah, right. That sounds like a plan.
Woo!
So that was our third crutch. It's the so-called subdomain crutch. We use it when the teams have clear and measurable key results, but it's hard to say whether each of the action will actually move this key result in a measurable way in short intervals so that you regularly see whether it's moving in the right direction. And we try to help them to ensure that they're on the right track with their key results by helping them to define, in this case, a subcategory, but it could also be a subset of users or a subsum of a revenue or something similar. So they have a key result that's measurable, that where you see increases or decreases in short intervals, and that ensure that you're on the right track. So that concludes our role play. Thank you so much, Leon and Franziska. And I am handing over for our honest learnings and current challenges.
Okay, I'm Natalie again. Yes, so I will now tell you a little bit about our learnings and challenges and what we're working on right now. So I've brought 4 learnings today. So the first one is onboarding of OKR teams. Yeah, it it is really something that needs time and support from the Agile coaches and also from other roles in the company. So that is one thing, but a second thing is related to that. It's really hard to onboard a lot of teams at the same time, yeah? So if you're starting and you have to do them all in like one big batch, that's really a challenge for the company, yeah? So it's easier to just onboard one team, but 10 at the same time is maybe a challenge, yeah? Then the second thing that I brought as a learning is the maturity of the teams. OKR teams need time to learn how to do it, yeah? So we've seen the coaching, it needs a little bit time to create, to learn how to create great OKRs, key results, to have clear priorities, yeah? To align the contributions with the other teams, and also then to do it without close coaching from like a Scrum Master or something like that, yeah? The third thing is also the management team needs time to learn, yeah? So also they have a learning curve. They have to learn how to give a guidance that focuses on objectives and not so much on initiatives, yeah? So it's not a roadmap that they hand over, but to set big goals, big objectives, and then let the teams do the work of creating key results and initiatives. This is also sometimes hard for the management to learn this, yeah? And then, for us at least, at willhaben, the fourth thing is it's so really hard to stay focused, yeah? To not have, there are always so many things going on at the same time, yeah? Many OKR teams, many objectives, many initiatives, yeah? So for us, we're, since 2 years, 3 years, constantly trying to reduce our WIP, our working process to, you know, do less at the same time. So these are our learnings, and now I tell you a little bit about what we're currently working on, so the current challenges that we face. Here I brought 3, and the first one is the improvement of the onboarding process. So the first thing is that when we have a new OKR team created, we try to improve the process to help them really during the first 2 quarters with close coaching to improve their key results and how they use the whole system. And on the other side, we tried to really onboard all teams to this process so that all teams in the company use the same process for goal setting. Yeah. And then the next 2 things that I brought here, this is something that we observed, yeah, when we watched teams that are like more mature, that have been doing this process for some time. We observed 2 things, and we would love to see that also other OKR teams start behaving in that same way. And the first thing here is the pushback, yeah? If management is coming to the teams with their quarterly guidance, we want to encourage the teams to push back if what the management asks them to do is unrealistic, yeah? So it's okay for the teams to say no, to say we are okay with having this key result and these goals, but that is too much, yeah, to just, you know, cross things from the list if it's unrealistic. So we want to be honest, because it's hard enough, yeah, to form realistic goals. So to say no and to push back is a skill that we would love to see more teams using more and more. And the second thing that we saw is true collaboration. What I mean by that is we have observed that very mature teams, they don't wait until the management is giving the guidance. They know when the next process starts, so they actively approach the management team and give them input to the guidance, yeah, so that it's easier for management to craft a realistic and good guidance. Yeah, so it's kind of like the team is giving input to the management so that they can, again, give good input to the team, yeah? So they kind of close this circle somehow. Yes, so these are the challenges, the things that we are working on right now. And that was actually, you know, a little case study about what we at willhaben do, how we, you know, design our process, about our challenges and learnings, and how we try to go from just using the OKR framework to really having useful OKRs that the team can use in a meaningful way. And before we go to the question section, where you can ask us what you maybe want to know, I would like to give you the chance for 1 or 2 minutes to reflect on what you've heard now. So I would ask you to find a person, you know, look around, a person you maybe don't know yet, yeah? Look around, find another person, and then I will give you like 2 minutes and like, for example, 1 minute for each, and you can share what was your main takeaway. What was one thing that was maybe interesting to you, what you want to try in your company? Yeah, so you can reflect on your learning for 1 minute or 2. So go ahead. I will set a timer, you know, I'm an Agile coach, Scrum Master, and leave you some 1 or 2 minutes to reflect, okay?
Ich mag Murmelrunden.
I've seen it. In dem Tonstudio nachaufnehmen. Slides, aber noch.
Okay, so thank you for stopping just in the middle of your discussion. So are there some questions from you?
With the current challenges, you said that you encourage the teams to say no. Yeah, I encourage my teams, but then the management says, you have to. How do you encourage them in these situations to stand by their no?
Yeah, well, I personally think then you have to work with management, not with the team. So actually, with us, it was rather that our management actively asked people also to push back. So they want the teams to push back. They encourage them. They help us to encourage them to push back. So if they then push back, it's rather that they are, oh yes, they did it, and not like you have to do it anyways. I mean, usually, sometimes it's not so easy, but then you try to craft something that makes sense. Yeah, but you know, also for management, if it cannot be reached, so what's the point in then just writing that number there? Also,
But you have very nice numbers.
Yeah, and
so maybe do you
For-
want to
What
add
was-
something?
And the second thing is of course, you know, it's not always that they, yay, let's just kill it. So that's not always the reaction. But what we can always get management to do is to set then the priorities. And to say we start sequentially. So we start with priority 1 and 2. And then if we're done with 1, we start 3. So that's kind of, if we cannot kick it out, then we make sure they have a priority very clear set. And that everyone is aware that the priority means we do not start with everything at the same time.
And
So that's a kind of crutch.
And I think it's very important that the team can make it transparent what the risks are if we start it right now next to the other topics, and that it will not work out, I guess.
Maybe that question about the key results in general. So what do you think that how to avoid that you don't stay in your own bubble and maybe define key results that are just inward facing but not outward facing? So like that, what is the truth? Is it like the outside world, so like the customer in your case have that impact, that outcome of like, I really like your willhaben app, using the pay delivery, for example, and that you find the right key results that are not so inward facing and that are outward facing. So is this a problem for you, or how did you?
I guess we have both directions in our OKRs. So we try to think user-centric, and so we try to get the idea of the user and try to get it out-faced, as you say. But we also have some technical OKRs. They're just the inner side, I guess. So we have both.
I have a question about the timing that you normally have when you measure outcome instead of output. Of course, before you are able to measure the outcome, there's a certain delay. So you are already done with, let's say, the implementation, the software is in production, but you don't know yet if your key result has been reached. And at the same time, in parallel, you should start with the next one. How do you handle this?
Cool.
Maybe I can so I have teams. So the first thing is we think in MVPs. So that's one very important part, that you can start measuring the outcome as soon as possible. So you release the minimum viable product. So we try to help them with user stories, etc., to craft things that are not done when the first step of implementation is done. And the second thing is, so we do not drop key results very often, but then they become a health metric. So for example, if the feature is released and it should continue to work as expected, then you would, for a certain amount of time, maybe already work on the next feature. But the performance and the usage and everything of your first feature will become a health metric, or the revenue, depending on what you're working on. So you will continue to measure that. And if that's somewhere below or above a threshold, you need to go back to that feature and figure out what's going on there.
And if I understood the question right, you mentioned that you don't have the metrics in before. So then our first task is to learn how to measure it. So this is the first thing you have to do before you really start working on the whole topic. That's the thing. And what you write in the OKRs, till you have the first metrics, it's the best you can do, but that's not perfect, that's for sure.
Maybe one thing to add also is that we do a lot of, we do a discovery phase and some research, UX research, so we try to make sure that we use something or implement something that is it will have an impact. So we try to do some research before even starting the implementation. That's
Hi, I don't know if you have this issue, but we have the problem that our teams are codependent somehow. So firmware developers versus web development versus app development. And so outward facing is sometimes a little bit difficult, because if, for example, one team is going to improve their quality, but the others have to deliver something, then we are kind of stuck. And this happens if they are especially in different lines from the organization somehow. And that's not easy to resolve, and maybe you have some input.
It's for sure something we also feel in our company, but we have this mobile first philosophy, so we want to have it first in the mobile or app or something like that, and that's why you have to think like vertical sliced the whole thing. You cannot start with the back end if you have to do it in the front end first. So yeah.
It's obvious, but that doesn't solve the problem.
Then maybe I didn't understand really the question.
So the problem is For sure, we have our product. The product is out there and it's enhanced. And before you can release a new feature, all three of the areas, the backend and the firmware, the web part plus also the app has to be analyzed. And only then you have a user experience, because then it's fully out there in the market. And for sure, it's a little time delay between these. And already the firmware development is ready, because then the backend development and the web starts. But the issue is that if there are any bugs or something, then the firmware development, which are starting to do something else already and have other OKRs, have to go back and fix whatever is there. So they cannot fulfill their OKRs because they have to do something else, because it is some feedback which is delayed from the customer, from the other teams.
So
maybe it's also, I mean, we have cross-functional teams where we have the back-end and the front-end developers and the app developers in one tribe or even in one squad, so they are not in separate teams, they're together in a team.
Yeah, I know that's not that easy, especially we thought about this exactly, but to put the firmware developers, which are doing C# development close to the hardware, together with some web developers into one team, is causing other issues, actually. So that's not an easy solution.
yeah.
But
But we implemented something like pair working, so there are from different professions working people on one desk and try to fix that.
but
Sorry?
But
Yeah, and
I think maybe we should close the session officially, but we will of course stay to answer some more questions beyond. But I think the next group wants to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone who doesn't want alcohol?
Oh no, I
no,
like
no, immer her damit.
Dankeschön.